So, good evening, dear friends, meeting after a gap of 3-4 days. A very happy new year to all of you. And I expect that all of you will remain in the good health next year and forever, not next year, forever. At the same time, you will learn a lot with homeopathy and apply homeopathy for the better mankind. So that's the wishes for all of you, and we'll start with our session with a big gap of 3-4 days. We're learning regarding the classification of chronic diseases, and in last lecture we started with the true chronic diseases and how Hahnemann have arrived towards the true chronic diseases, the theory of chronic diseases, which we have learned in the last lecture. So there are 5 points with which he came to the conclusion how he came to the conclusion of the causes of chronic diseases, and those 5 points are labeled by the name of theory of chronic diseases. The first point is that the law of similars might not be a law of universal application. Number 2, the number of medicines which are available in homeopathy might be less in number to find it out the simillimum. Number 3, there might be an error in the case taking. Number 4, there might be an error in the application of knowledge of medicines to the knowledge of disease. And last point which he has considered, there might be any obstacle in the process of recovery because of which the patients were not getting cured. And when he studied all those 5 points with those thousands of cases again and again, then he reached towards the causes of chronic diseases in the form of chronic miasms, out of which the first one which he discovered was the venereal miasm, that is the syphilitic. The second one which he has discussed came out with the gonorrhea, suppressed gonorrhea, that is psychosis. And third one, the biggest cause during Hahnemannian time was the psoric one, that is 7/8 of the cases which were prevalent at that time were of psoric in nature. So this is how he reached towards those miasms, and those he considered that these are the causes, real causes of the chronic diseases and sufferings of mankind, and he has explained something. This theory of chronic diseases was not given in the books, that's why I've added it, and this is for the exam going students. It is one of the important questions, so you should keep this in your mind as it is, those 5 points which is labeled by the name of theory of chronic diseases. So we'll turn toward the next aphorism, that is 79. And then he starts exactly these 3 miasms, out of which first he discussed about the syphilis. So we'll learn what he says about it. Aphorism 79. Hitherto, syphilis alone has been to some extent known as such a chronic miasmatic disease, which when uncured ceases only with the termination of life. So he starts with the syphilis. And syphilis was the disease. Right from the beginning, it was considered as a chronic because this syphilis disease runs through the 4 phases. Syphilis runs through primary syphilis, the secondary syphilis, the tertiary syphilis, or also called as latent syphilis, and last one, that is the quaternary syphilis, and ultimately ending with the death of the human being. So syphilis disease caused because of Treponema pallidum, a bacilli, and these bacilli entered inside the human life, even not of a human origin, it was of animal origin, entered inside the human life because of the disease sora. Because of the perverted sora, there was a chance to get entered inside the human life for this bacillus, and when it entered, it has developed its destruction in the human life. And it started with the first primary manifestations of it, primary syphilis, called as a primary chancre. It is nothing but a single painless hard ulcer either on male or female genitalia, associated with bilateral horizontal group of inguinal lymphadenopathy, caused because of Treponema pallidum, is called by the name of primary syphilis or primary chancre. This primary syphilis, when treated by local applications, such as mercurial preparations, the nitrate preparations, and when that ulcer is healed, It is not healed, it just gets suppressed, it enters inside, patient temporarily feels better, and disease was running inside. After some time, patient presents with those original features of the primary syphilis associated with or mixed with the secondary associated with the condylometalata, associated with the maculopapular rash, specifically on the extremities, even in the buccal cavity. And that expresses that disease has now complicated from primary to the secondary stage, where the original syphilis was contracted with the psoric as well as psychotic manifestation, and then it becomes rather difficult. If you suppress it again from this secondary stage of syphilis, it enters into the tertiary phase. So if you treat that rash with the help of some local ointment, if you again suppress primary chancre with the help of mercurial preparations, if you cauterize those condylometalata, these are nothing but the flat warts present at mucocutaneous junction. And if you remove them by knife or if you cauterize them, then this gets suppressed and it goes into tertiary phase. And during tertiary phase, it remains latent for some time, where no manifestations happens, but disease was continuously going on and on inside. And when it comes out, it reaches to the quaternary phase. And in the quaternary phase, it either expresses in the form of neurosyphilis or either in the form of cardiosyphilis or in the form of any other manifestation where it leads to the destruction of that organism, that man. And that's why this was Hahnemann considered this is the first important chronic miasmatic disease, which was ultimately ending with the termination of the life. And that's why Hahnemann chose the same name to his miasm. He has given the same name of disease, the syphilitic miasm. And how this syphilis nomenclature is done to this miasm, if anyone knows, it's okay. But if it is not known, that there was a American shepherd whose name was Syphilius and who had contracted this is first time. So this person whose name was Syphilius, who first time got the manifestations of this syphilis, this disease, and this was considered as the name of the disease and nomenclature was done. So this is the history about the syphilitic disease, and Hahnemann says it leads toward the termination of life. So this is first miasm which Hahnemann have discovered, that he got the history of either suppressed syphilis either in the past or family history of that patient, leading to form new internal diseases to which Hahnemann labeled by the name of syphilitic miasm. So think over it. This is the first invention done by Hahnemann regarding the causes of chronic diseases. But these were only out of cases, 1/8 cases, only 60% of group were suffering with this syphilitic miasm. Then again he worked out, and then he says over there, second one, the psychosis, the condylomatous disease, equally ineradicable by the vital force without proper medicinal treatment, was not recognized as a chronic miasmatic disease of a peculiar character, which it nevertheless undoubtedly is. And the physicians imagined they had cured it when they had destroyed the growth upon the skin, but the persisting dyscrasia occasioned by it escaped their observation. And second cause which he got over there is the suppressed psychosis, that is suppressed gonorrhea or a fig ward. So another name for the psychosis is condylomatous disease. Condylomata are nothing but the warts. These are the flat warts, the fig warts, which are present around the genitals, around at the mucocutaneous junction, along with perurethral gonorrheal discharge, yellowish mucopurulent discharge. And there was only one treatment which was there at that time, that is removal of this wart by cautery or with the help of knife. So if you remove them, the person feels that he is cured, but he is not cured. The disease has transformed from less important organ, that is the mucocutaneous junction, to the internal organs, and it starts developing pathologies inside. Where the peoples were happy, they have treated their own disease, but it is not so. It entered inside. And Hahnemann says It was not recognized that gonorrhea was a chronic disease at that time. They were considering gonorrhea as acute disease. Hahnemann was the first one to tell everyone that gonorrhea is a chronic in nature. He explained there are two varieties of gonorrhea, acute gonorrhea as well as chronic gonorrhea. Acute gonorrhea has typical acute manifestations, the period of prodrome, period of progress, and period of decline. And it never, even though you suppress that acute by any means, it never leads to chronic. But chronic gonorrhea is always chronic right from the start, and it ends into the similar manner as the chronic disease develops. So it has a period of prodrome, it has a period of progress, and it has no period of decline, but leads towards the destruction only. So if you suppress this gonorrhea, if you suppress this pigworts or condylomata, then the diseases which develops because of suppression of this, either in the past or family history of the patient, leading to form new diseases, to which Hahnemann labeled by the name of psychosis. He has labeled this miasm with psychosis because the meaning of psychosis is pigwort disease. And this disease was having manifestations of pigworts. That's why Hahnemann labeled this miasm with the psychosis. And these are two venereal miasms, which has, which were, both of them were the caused because of the bacilli, which were of animal origin. So Neisseria gonorrhoeae causing the gonorrhea is again a bacilli of not of human origin but of animal origin, entered inside the human life because of the perverted sora, and that's why, because of the perverted sora, these two miasms of animal origin entered inside the human life, producing a disorder. That's why sora is called as the mother of all miasms. Because this is the reason sora has given, perverted sora was responsible to give rise to these two miasms. So this is what Hahnemann wants to explain over there regarding these two miasms. And these were the greatest causes at that time. But out of them, maximum cases were which were not getting cured were different. Hahnemann was in search of them. What is that is not getting cured? And he was just considering what is the problem with it. So ultimately, he again worked out with those thousands of cases that why these patients were not getting cured, and then he reached towards the another important cause of the chronic disease. The third one, non-venereal in origin, but showing the similar type of manifestation, the suppressed skin eruptions, either in the past or family history of the patient, which is labeled by Hahnemann by the name of itch, suppressed itch, either in the past or family history of the patient, leading to form new diseases, to which Hahnemann labeled by the name of psoric miasm. And that he explains in the 80th aphorism, the sora. So what he says regarding the sora? Incalculably greater and more important than the two chronic miasms just named, however, is the chronic miasm of sora, which, whilst those to reveal their specific internal dyscrasia, the one by venereal chancre and the other by cauliflower-like growths, does also, after the completion of the internal infection of the whole organism, announced by peculiar cutaneous eruption, sometimes consisting only of a few vesicles, accompanied by intolerable voluptuous tickling itching and a peculiar odor, the monstrous internal chronic miasm, the sora, the only real fundamental cause. See, here he has specifically mentioned the fundamental cause of the disease is the sora. People explain that fundamental cause means all three miasms. It is not so. Fundamental miasm, Hahnemann have utilized this terminology only to explain the sora and not for the syphilis and psychosis. So this is too important to know. So what he says, the monstrous internal chronic miasm, the sora, the only real fundamental cause and the producer of all the other numerous, I may say, innumerable forms of disease, which under the names of nervous debility, hysteria, hypochondriasis, mania, melancholia, imbecility, madness, epilepsy, and convulsions of all sorts, softening of bones, rachitis, scoliosis, and kyphosis, caries, cancers, fungus, hematodes, neoplasms, gout, hemorrhoids, jaundice, cyanosis, dropsy, amenorrhea, hemorrhage from the stomach, nose, lungs, bladder, and the womb, of asthma and ulceration of the lung, of impotence and barrenness. Barrenness means sterility. Barrenness of megrim. Megrim means migraine. Megrim, deafness, cataract, amaurosis. Amaurosis is a complete loss of vision without any pathological evidence in the eye. It's called as amaurosis. Amaurosis, urinary calculus, paralysis, defects of the senses, and the pains of thousands of kinds, etc., figure in the systematic works on pathology as peculiar independent diseases. Now he explains what is Sora and how this Sora can lead to these various varieties of diseases. So he explains over there that in syphilis, the primary manifestation is primary chancre. Again, on the external most parts, that is on male or female urethra. In case of psychosis, the primary manifestation in the form of cauliflower-like growths, condylomata along with gonorrhea, external most aspect. And this third one, which is non-venereal in origin, expresses on the body anywhere in the form of vesicular eruptions with a voluminous itching and tickling. And when it is suppressed by local means, by local ointments, it turns inside. If you get this history, that is suppressed skin eruptions of a vesicular variety, and when it turns inside, either in the past history of the patient or in the family history of the patient, you can get these cases. And when it enters inside, it produces numerable forms. Many forms you can get over there. And this is what he is explaining over there. This enters and it produces variety. It produces a nervous debility, it produces amaurosis, it produces anything, any damn thing. You cannot specify this will going to happen. Some patients might get epilepsy, some patients might get convulsions, some patients might get the meningitis, some patients might get the encephalitis, some patients might get the heart trouble, some patients might get the liver trouble. It varies. It depends upon the susceptibility of that individual. It depends upon the susceptibility of a specific system of that individual. And then it enters and leads toward that specific organ. And that is what is the secondary manifestation of the Sora. And during Hahnemannian time, it was the major group of patients who were having this suppressed history of vesicular eruptions in the past or family. Nowadays, the things have been changed. Now we don't have pure cases of Sora. Very occasionally we have the soric cases, pure soric cases. We have ample cases, but those ample cases are mixed miasmatic fluids. We have more, this era, modern era, is related with the sorosyphilitic disorder. And sorosyphilitic is nothing but the tubercular miasm. So present era is of a tubercular miasm, present era is of cancer miasm. This is the psychosyphilitic or sorosyphilitic is the era of present. So, and during Hahnemannian time, he says that there are numerous cases, and all those cases were of those diseases, varieties, which he has mentioned over there. So, names which he has given, these names doesn't matter. From our point of view, whatever may be the disease, instead of naming the disease, you must find it out what is the cause behind that. If you get pure history of suppressed vesicular eruption, then that is a soric disease, finished. That's all the classification is. Instead of naming that pathology. So he has given many names. Melancholia. Melancholia means madness, depression, imbecility. Imbecility is doesn't having mental strength. Manasa weakness, it is mental weakness. Madness, insanity. Then he has explained the softening of bones. That is what is called as rachitis, scoliosis, and kyphosis, lateral and forward bending of the spine, caries. That is necrosis, cancers, fungus hematodes. Fungus hematodes means malignant bleeding growths. neoplasms, again neoplastic tumors, gouts, hemorrhoids, and many more he has mentioned over there. So these are the products of suppressed vesicular eruptions and leading to internal disorder. See how the disease axis changes. It changes from less important organ to more important organ. That means it is separation. So it goes from skin to anywhere inside, and to which Hahnemann labeled these are the psoric disorder. This psora is the name given by Hahnemann. Originally, the word was not English; it was from Hebrew language. Original word was sorat, T-S-O-R-A-T, sorat, where T is silent. And sorat means going inside from outside, a burrow. So that the same meaning is there. The skin eruptions which goes from outside to inside, like a burrowing going inside gradually, is happens in this disease. And that's why Hahnemann chose this. It has converted into English by the name of Sora, having a meaning a burrow or going inside from outside. And he has chosen the same name to his myasm, the Sora. So this is how Hahnemann came to the conclusion of these three miasms, out of which two were venereal in origin, the syphilis and psychosis, and one was the non-venereal in origin, labeled by the name of Sora. So this is what he wants to explain, and there is one footnote to this paragraph. Numerous diseases, forms of diseases, and he gives different examples and what he wants to explain. He wants to explain that there was only one method, that just labeling the or naming the diseases. Hahnemann says it is not of any use. If you just label, it doesn't mean. But if you find it out under which classification it goes, then you can find it, you can go for treatment. And that's why he explains one footnote, and it is a big footnote. We'll read that and understand that. What he says, I spent 12 years in investigating the source of this incredibly large number of chronic infections, in ascertaining and collecting certain proofs of this great truth, which had remained unknown to all former and contemporary observers, and in discovering at the same time the principal antisoric remedies, which collectively are nearly a match for this thousand-headed monster of disease in all its different developments and forms. So what he says over there? He said that I have spent nearly about 12 years to reach to these causes of chronic diseases. And it is a big period where he was working to find it out cause of the disease, specifically cause of the chronic diseases. And this he explains that this he has mentioned very thoroughly in his chronic diseases. He has mentioned what work he has done during those 12 years is everything he has published in his chronic diseases. What he says further, I have published my observations on this subject in the book entitled The Chronic Diseases, the 4 volumes Dresden Arnold, second edition, Dusseldorf, Schwab. Before I had obtained this knowledge, I could only teach how to treat the whole number of chronic diseases as isolated individual maladies with those medicinal substances whose pure effects had been tested on healthy persons up to that period, so that every case of chronic disease was treated by my disciplines according to the group of symptoms it presented, just like an idiopathic disease, and it was often so far cured that sick mankind rejoiced at the extensive remedial treasures already amassed by the new healing art. He has worked very hard. He has worked very hard to find it out a right remedy for the specific miasmatic disease. So he worked out to find it out antisoric remedies for the psora. He worked out very hard to find it out antisyphilitic remedies for syphilitic miasm. He worked out very hard in order to find it out a right remedy for the psychotic miasm, the antipsychotic. And that's why for the for the psoric miasm, he came out with the soranum and sulfur. For the psychotic miasm, he came out with thuja, medorinum, and natramsol. For the syphilitic miasm, he came out with the Merck salt, syphilinum, aramate, etc. And accordingly, he has started treating those patients. And then he was rejoiced. Then he was happy because those diseases started recovering at that time. After giving right remedy, those started coming out. The original primary manifestation started appearing. And he was very happy because patients were getting cured thereafter. And that's why it is a big invention than a invention of homeopathy or discovery of homeopathy. And that's why it's a really, really hard work which Hahnemann have done at that time. So that's why he writes, I have spent 12 years of my life to find it out the causes of those chronic diseases. Basically, when we understand that any person comes out with some specific research or discovery, there is always a hard work done by that person. It is not possible, it is not a fluke with which it comes. So this is what he wants to explain over there. And here's what he further says. Just read that. We'll finish that footnote. How much greater cause is there now for rejoicing that the desired goal has been so much more nearly attained, in as much as the recently discovered and far more specific homeopathic remedy for the chronic affections arising from psora, properly termed antisoric remedy, and the special instructions for their preparation and employment have been published. And from among them, the true physician can now select for his curative agents those whose medicinal symptoms correspond in the most similar homeopathic manner to the chronic disease he has to cure. And thus, by the employment of antisoric medicines more suitable for this miasm, he is enabled to render more essential service, almost invariably to effect a perfect cure. And now he explains that with the help of those remedies, that is for the psora, antisoric, for the psychosis, the antipsychotic, for the syphilis, the antisyphilitic, with the help of these medicines, it was possible to cure all those chronic diseases which were difficult to cure earlier, or in fact, they were incurable at that time. And that's why he has explained about that, how to treat those antisoric, antipsychotic, and soric, psychotic, and syphilitic diseases with the help of antisoric, antipsychotic, antisyphilitic remedies accordingly. And that work which he has done, he has written it in the chronic diseases. Earlier, there were 4 volumes, which when he published in 1829, 1828, he published the two chronic diseases. It was published in 4 volumes, but now it has been compiled and we can get it in 2 volumes, the chronic diseases, 2 volumes written by Hahnemann. So if you go over there under those writings written by Hahnemann, you can find it out how much hard work he has done. He has read details about treating the many diseases with patients' introduction, what were the problems, what history he got, and how he has prescribed remedy, how he came out with the primary manifestation. All those details he has mentioned over there. So regarding those chronic diseases, very detailed study was done by Hahnemann, and which is very helpful for us even in today. Just now, just half an hour back, I had a case. I think I have shared that case with all of you. It's a case of nephrotic syndrome in just 2 years child. And child was brought to me with a totally inflamed body, fully puffed, and she was under allopathic treatment since last 6 months with the deflazacort. And because of that, she was more puffed and puffed, and she was absolutely a gone case from their point of view, because at the age of 2 years, well, whole body was swollen, and patient was eyes were looking like Chinese people. It was so swollen. And when we started with the right remedy, just 1.5 months have been passed. Now there is absolutely zero edema. Nothing has remained. And now she developed totally a rash around the neck on the lower extremity. And that is the separation which came out after the right simile. See how much study Hahnemann have done and how right he was. And it was just separation leading to form a nephrotic syndrome in her case, brought her back again to the state of health. I told them and warned them right from the first day. If she had any skin disease, don't apply anything. And that's why they told, sir, we have not applied anything. And they were happy because whole body edema, ascites, the uh, effusion in the lungs, everything was vanished. So this is how the patient recovers and produces again the primary manifestation. So how Hahnemann was very clear with his thoughts, and when he developed, experimented all those things, those were really wonderful, and because of which we are ready to prescribe for the patient even 250 years later after Hahnemann. So all those things he is explaining over there in detail, and these are wonderful things which we are learning. Now he is turning towards very important part, that is the how to learn this method of case taking or understand the patient. So he has classified diseases first. He has classified from dynamic and adynamic, out of which adynamic are because of the external causes, the dynamics which are caused because of internal cause, internal derangement of the vital force, and they are again divided into two types, acute and chronic. As we have learned, acutes, they are classified into four types: the individual or indisposition, sporadic, the epidemic and endemic. And then chronic, we have discussed in detail that artificial chronic disease, the pseudo chronic disease, and today we have learned about the true chronic disease. And again, true chronic diseases, either from SORA, either from syphilis, either because of psychosis. First one is non-venereal, other two are venereal. And one fourth one is the mixed miasmatic trait, that is either sorosyphilitic or sauropsychotic or psychosyphilitic or sauropsychosyphilitic. So this is nothing but the classification of diseases one must know. And if we understand it properly, we can apply right remedy to that patient at that time. So lot of things we have finished in today's session. We have 3 minutes in hand. Are there any questions? If any questions are there, please let me know.
Sir, if there is a chronic sty on the right side of eye on the upper lid, it's
Hmm.
almost 1 year old sty.
Hmm.
It's a bit hard. It's my plumber actually is having it, and now for the last 1 month he's having on the lower eyelid on the left eye side.
Hmm.
That's a bit small.
You get a rubric in your repertory, the I chapter styles, and under that you get a rubric recurrent.
Right, sir.
The only remedy mentioned over there is staphysac. I think so. It was, as per my knowledge, in the repertory it has been given like this. That is one important remedy, definitely staphysac in styles. And along with when you give the staphysac, if you find it out that it is painful, always add the Silicia 660ds. It opens up that style
Mhm.
and it removes the discharge. It is a very good remedy, Silicia 66. It works beautifully in such types of cases. To open up the styles, Silicia works very nicely.
So Staphylococcus 200.
Yeah, staphysac 200, few doses only. Don't repeat too much.
Mhm.
But Silicia you can repeat for 10 days, 15 days also.
Sir, there is two rubrics: weakness in innervation, prostration, morning;
Hmm.
weakness, innervation, prostration, waking morning.
Weakness, second one, I could not hear.
Sir, prostration, waking on,
Waking on, huh? So
and the prostration in the morning. Yes, sir.
you find it out what exactly it is there in the patient. Whether he explained
Right,
that
sir.
whether it is in morning, whether it is on after waking on, or whether it is sleep after. Everything you have to confirm very clearly. Okay. Anything else? So thank you very much being there. Tomorrow we'll continue with the things again and we'll learn many more things. Thank you very much.